It was a warm summer evening in July 2002, the kind of night that would typically be filled with the quiet hum of crickets and the occasional sound of car tires on asphalt. In the parking lot of the Nassau Bay Hilton Hotel in Houston, Texas, a silver Mercedes sat idling under the muted glow of a street lamp. From the outside, it seemed ordinary, just another car parked in just another lot. But for the woman sitting inside, this night was anything but ordinary. Behind the wheel was Clara Harris, a woman known for her success, poise, and determination. Her life had been a series of triumphs. She was a celebrated dentist, the co-owner of a thriving dental practice, and the wife of David Harris, an accomplished orthodontist. Together they had built a life that many would envy, a sprawling home, beautiful children, and a reputation as the epitome of the American dream. Yet, appearances can be deceiving. Beneath the polished veneer of their lives lay a truth that no one could see, a truth that Clara herself had only recently uncovered. For weeks, Clara had been living in a waking nightmare. Whispers of her husband's infidelity had reached her ears, but she had brushed them off, unwilling to believe that the man she loved could betray her. David was her partner, her confidant, her everything. But the signs were there. Late nights at the office, unexplained absences, a sudden emotional distance. Clara, ever the problem solver, had tried to ignore the doubts creeping into her mind. She focused on their children, their business, and the life they had built together. Yet, the nagging feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. Eventually, Clara could no longer silence the voice in her head. She needed answers. And so, she did what many in her position might consider. She hired a private investigator. It was a decision made out of desperation, a last-ditch effort to uncover the truth that David refused to give her. The investigator's task was simple: follow David, watch his movements, and report back with any evidence of wrongdoing. What Clara didn't know was how much that decision would alter the course of her life. The evidence came quickly and decisively. Photos, videos, reports, all pointing to the same conclusion: David was having an affair. And the woman at the center of it was not some stranger, not a faceless person Clara could write off. No, this woman was Gail Bridges, a receptionist who worked alongside David in their dental practice. The betrayal cut deep. This wasn't just a stranger, it was someone who had been a part of their lives, someone Clara had trusted. The weight of that discovery was crushing. Clara was a proud woman, one who had spent her life working hard to achieve success. She had given everything to her marriage, her family, and her business. And now, all of it felt like a lie. But Clara was not one to give up easily. Instead of confronting David in anger, she made a decision that many saw as a testament to her strength and resolve. She would fight for her marriage. Clara threw herself into salvaging what she could. She planned romantic dinners, organized family outings, and even convinced David to renew their wedding vows. For a brief moment, it seemed like her efforts were working. David appeared to pull away from Gail, recommitting himself to Clara and their family. But the peace was short-lived. Unbeknownst to Clara, the affair had not ended. David was still seeing Gail, and his promises of reconciliation were little more than empty words. On July 24th, 2002, everything came to a head. The private investigator Clara had hired had followed David to the Nassau Bay Hilton Hotel. He was meeting Gail there, a rendezvous they likely thought was secret. But Clara knew. She knew, and she was on her way. With her teenage stepdaughter Lindsay by her side, Clara drove to the hotel, her heart pounding with a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. When Clara arrived, she saw them. Through the hotel lobby's glass doors, she saw her husband and Gail together, laughing, smiling, and holding hands. The sight was like a dagger to her heart. For weeks she had tried to ignore the pain, to push past the betrayal, but seeing it with her own eyes was too much to bear. Clara stormed into the hotel, her emotions boiling over. Witnesses would later describe her as frantic, distraught, and furious. She confronted David and Gail, shouting accusations and demanding answers. At one point, Clara lunged at Gail, pulling her hair in a moment of pure, unfiltered rage. The confrontation was brief, as hotel staff quickly intervened, separating the three and escorting Gail to safety. But for Clara, the damage was done. Her heart, already broken, now felt shattered beyond repair. She returned to her car, her stepdaughter beside her, and sat in silence. The world outside the car seemed distant, muted, as if she were underwater. The only sound was the steady hum of the Mercedes engine. What happened next shocked the nation and made headlines for years to come. Clara Harris, the poised and successful dentist, made a decision that would forever alter her life and the lives of everyone around her. David emerged from the hotel, walking toward his vehicle, and Clara's eyes locked onto him. Without hesitation, she hit the accelerator, the silver Mercedes surging forward. The first impact was shocking. Witnesses described the sound of metal meeting flesh, a sickening thud that echoed through the parking lot. But Clara didn't stop. She circled back, her tires screeching against the pavement, and struck David again. And then again. The silver Mercedes became a weapon, its driver consumed by a rage so overpowering that she seemed unaware of the horror unfolding around her. Lindsay, trapped in the passenger seat, screamed for Clara to stop. Her cries were heart-wrenching, a desperate plea from a child watching her world collapse. But Clara was beyond reason. Her focus was singular, her emotions blinding. By the time Clara brought the car to a halt, David Harris lay motionless on the pavement. The once vibrant man who had built a life with Clara was gone, his body broken, his life extinguished in a moment of unthinkable violence. Witnesses in the parking lot were frozen in shock. Some had tried to intervene, shouting at Clara to stop, while others called 911, their voices trembling as they described the scene. When the police arrived, they found Clara still at the scene, her expression vacant, as if she were in a trance. She didn't resist as they took her into custody. Lindsay's account of the events later became a focal point of the case. Her screams, her pleas for Clara to stop, and her description of the look in Clara's eyes painted a picture of a woman consumed by anger and heartbreak, a woman who had reached her breaking point. That night, the parking lot of the Nassau Bay Hilton became the stage for a tragedy that captivated the nation. What had begun as a confrontation born of betrayal had ended in murder, leaving behind a shattered family and a series of questions that would haunt everyone involved. The events of July 24, 2002, ended with Clara Harris in handcuffs, standing in the parking lot of the Nassau Bay Hilton, where her husband's lifeless body remained on the ground. As police officers arrived, the flashing lights of their vehicles illuminated a scene that was almost too surreal to process. Clara did not resist arrest. Witnesses later described her as eerily calm, as though the weight of what she had done had yet to fully register. Lindsay, David's teenage daughter, was taken into police custody as well, but only to provide her statement. The emotions Lindsay carried were impossible to articulate, a mix of grief, shock, and the horror of having watched her father's death unfold in front of her. Her cries echoed in the minds of those who were present that night, a haunting reminder of the tragedy that had just occurred. Word of the crime spread quickly. Local news outlets were among the first to pick up the story, and within hours, the name Clara Harris was being discussed in living rooms and workplaces across Houston. By the next morning, the story had gone national. A dentist, a respected member of the community, had killed her husband in a fit of rage. The media latched onto the dramatic details of the case, the affair, the confrontation in the hotel lobby, the fatal act in the parking lot, and the chilling surveillance footage that captured it all. The surveillance footage became the centerpiece of the public's fascination with the case. Recorded by the very private investigator Clara had hired to follow David, the grainy video showed the silver Mercedes circling the parking lot, hitting David multiple times. The images were both shocking and tragic, a visual record of a moment that had forever altered so many lives. In the weeks leading up to the trial, the media coverage only intensified. Reporters camped outside the Harris home, speculating about Clara's state of mind and the impact of David's affair on her actions. Some members of the public expressed sympathy for Clara, believing she had been pushed to her breaking point by years of betrayal and emotional pain. Others saw her as a cold-blooded killer who had allowed her anger to consume her. The court of public opinion was deeply divided, and emotions ran high on both sides. When the trial began in 2003, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, legal experts, and members of the public filled the seats, eager to witness the legal battle that would determine Clara's fate. The prosecution wasted no time presenting their case. They played the surveillance footage for the jury, letting the grainy video speak louder than words. Witnesses, including Lindsay, recounted the events of that night in vivid detail, painting a picture of a woman consumed by rage. The defense team, however, sought to humanize Clara. They described her as a devoted wife and mother who had been driven to the edge by her husband's infidelity. They argued that her actions were not premeditated, but instead a result of the overwhelming emotions she felt in the moment. They brought in character witnesses who testified to Clara's loving nature and dedication to her family, hoping to sway the jury by showing her as more than just the woman in the surveillance footage. The most emotional moment of the trial came when Lindsay took the stand. Her testimony was raw and heart-wrenching. She described the confrontation in the hotel lobby, her stepmother's frantic state, and the horrifying moments in the parking lot. Lindsay's voice trembled as she recounted her desperate pleas for Clara to stop, the helplessness she felt as she watched her father die. Her words brought many in the courtroom to tears, highlighting the profound pain this tragedy had inflicted on all involved. In the end, the jury found Clara Harris guilty of murder. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison and fined $10,000, a punishment that sparked further debate among the public. Some believed the sentence was too harsh, given the emotional circumstances of the crime. Others felt it was a just outcome for a woman who had taken a life in such a violent manner. Clara began her prison sentence in 2003, serving her time in a Texas facility. For years, she lived a life of routine and reflection, separated from her children and the life she had once known. In interviews conducted during her incarceration, Clara expressed deep remorse for her actions, stating that she wished she could undo the events of that night, but no amount of regret could erase the pain she had caused or the life she had taken. In 2018, after serving 15 years of her sentence, Clara Harris was released from prison. Her release reignited public interest in the case, with news outlets revisiting the story and examining the impact it had on those involved. Clara returned to a world that had moved on without her. The dental practice she had once co-owned was long gone. Her children were now adults, and her name remained synonymous with one of the most infamous crimes in recent Texas history. Today, Clara lives a quieter life, away from the public eye. The media and public fascination with her case has waned over the years, but for those who were directly affected by her actions, the scars remain. Lindsay, now an adult, has rarely spoken publicly about the events of that night, choosing instead to rebuild her life away from the spotlight. The Clara Harris case is a story that continues to provoke strong emotions and debates. It is a story of love turned to betrayal, of heartbreak turned to rage, and of a single moment that changed everything. Clara Harris's life, once so full of promise, became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked anger and the fragile nature of human relationships. Questions that linger unanswered in the hearts and minds of those who followed the case, and perhaps even in Clara's own reflections. What truly drives a person to such an extreme act? Was Clara Harris a woman blinded by passion, heartbreak, and betrayal, a victim of emotional circumstances beyond her control? Or was she a person who, in a moment of unchecked rage, allowed her fury to overshadow reason and humanity? Think back to that silver Mercedes circling the parking lot. Was it a weapon born of momentary madness, or had Clara in those split seconds made a deliberate decision to end the life of the man who had betrayed her trust? And what of David Harris? Should he bear some measure of responsibility for the events that led to his tragic end, or is the blame solely Clara's to carry? This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human relationships, about the fragility of trust, and about the depths of emotional pain that betrayal can inflict. But it also challenges us to think critically about accountability and justice. Clara Harris was sentenced to 20 years in prison, a punishment many viewed as a symbol of society's refusal to condone violence, no matter the circumstances. Yet others argue that Clara's actions were born of desperation, and that her sentence failed to account for the psychological toll David's infidelity had taken on her. And then there's the role of Lindsay, the teenage witness to this horrific event. Her cries for her stepmother to stop, her testimony in court, and the trauma she has carried since that night remind us of the ripple effects of violence. Was Lindsay's presence in that car an accidental factor in a spontaneous crime? Or did Clara's decision to bring her stepdaughter along suggest premeditation? Betrayal is a powerful force, one that has inspired countless stories, from ancient tragedies to modern crime tales. But rarely does betrayal manifest with such visceral, life-altering consequences. Does this story highlight the emotional and psychological toll of infidelity, showing us the lengths to which people can be pushed when their trust is shattered? Or does it serve as a stark warning about the dangers of letting anger and heartbreak take control? And what of forgiveness? In the years since her release, Clara Harris has expressed remorse for her actions, but forgiveness, both from society and from those most affected, remains a complex and deeply personal matter. Can Clara ever truly atone for what she did, and should she be granted the grace of redemption? As you reflect on this case, consider the choices that led to that fateful night in the Hilton parking lot. Were there moments when this tragedy could have been averted? Was it the affair, the betrayal, the confrontation, or the rage that made this crime inevitable? And what does this story teach us about the human capacity for both love and destruction? The Clara Harris case is not just a tale of crime and punishment. It's a mirror held up to the complexities of human relationships, the weight of betrayal, and the irreversible consequences of a single moment of fury. As you think about this story, ask yourself, what would you have done in Clara's shoes? Could you have controlled your emotions? Or might you have acted in a way that shocked even yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know your perspective. Was Clara a victim, a perpetrator, or both? And what lessons do you think we can learn from this tragic, unforgettable case? Also, what's your take on Clara Harris and the choices she made? Do you believe she was a victim of emotional torment, pushed to an unbearable breaking point? Or should she have been able to control her actions no matter the betrayal she faced? Let us know in the comments below. Your thoughts matter, and we want to hear them. And if you found this deep dive into the Clara Harris case thought-provoking, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more captivating true crime stories. Every like, share, and comment helps us bring more cases like this to light. Who knows? Your comment might spark a discussion that changes the way we look at stories like these. So, join the conversation.